Hello everybody and welcome to the Pretty Good Gaming Podcast, episode number 14 of 2019. My name is...
Were we doing 2019 episodes then? Is that what you mean? This is episode 14 out of 2019.
You know what I meant, Henry.
Because that's a lot of friggin' stuff.
Well, we might get there one day.
Oh, bloody hell.
Not this year though. We're only on number 14 of 2019, the year 2019, if that clarifies for anybody who might want to question my my numbering method. Anyway, my name is... The challenge to my authority extinguished now. My name's Gareth Evans. This is Mr. Henry Cooper.
Yep. I will be mutineering. Mutineering?
Well, this is... I go away for a week, and this is what happens. You start challenging my authority. You start questioning the numbering of the podcasts. I mean, it's like you own the place now, Henry.
I do. I mean, you come back.
It's like your name's on the door or something.
With your tanned skin, your exotic Hispanic.
Oh, so that's what it is.
Tone. Yeah, I don't like you because you're not a white
jealousy
man anymore. You've trans-raced. You're transracial.
It's the jealousy. That's what it is. It's the green-eyed monster coming out in you now, Henry.
No, I do have green eyes. So
you have white skin too.
Already part way there. Toxic,
you're pasty, white-skinned, green-eyed,
cisgendered,
fool.
Fucking little prick.
We've got a green skin here, so if you look into the camera too much, your eyes will be keyed out. You'll have like clear eyes. That's the indication that you're being very jealous of my.
My mum doesn't think I have green eyes, and that really threw off my sense of identity. I'm like, you're my mum. You should know this. Like, who am I? But then I've proved it. I do have green eyes. They're greeny grey. They're not like, brilliant emerald green.
Yeah,
they're quite boring.
They're not. They are.
They're very green grey, like flat one colour, but they are green. Stand by it.
Well, there you go. The first useful, juicy bit of nugget of information from today's episode.
Talk about some video games or something.
Is Henry's eye colour definitely
maybe
greeny grey kind of type of. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about a few topics. We've got Days Gone releasing their... the review embargo is up in a few hours' time. We're going to record the Days Gone segment later on. So later on in this podcast, we will go over the Days Gone reviews and see how it's reviewed. Any quick impressions what it's going to be? Obviously, the people watching this know by now what it's going to be. But what's your guess? Lock in your guess. Last time, what did we do it for last time?
What was it?
It was Sekiro, right?
Was it Sekiro? Yeah.
And I said like an 89. Yeah, and you said 91.
Yeah, and it was like 90 or something.
Yeah,
like right in the middle. I reckon it's gonna be like an 8 because I reckon people are gonna
8 out of 10, 80%.
Yeah, 80%. Between 7.5 and 8.5.
Yeah, we're talking Metacritic score here, so you've got to nail in a number.
Yeah, I reckon more or less bang on 80 because like my preconceptions and general feel about it is that it's going to have like a fun story of like gritty, dark, like Last of Us-y. Gameplay will be fine, but I don't feel like it's going to be anything special in terms of like it's going to have a lot of open world like Ubisoft crap. Well, like it's still fun, but it's a bit like fillery, padded out. But I still think it'll be a solid game.
An 80, you said 80?
80,
bang on. Well, I've got the same feeling as I had with Horizon Zero Dawn. I think reviewers are going to be surprised, and I think there's enough story in there, because reviewers love stories, right?
Yeah, story's what's going to really take it.
And I think, based on that, Horizon ended up on 89. I reckon, if my calculations are correct, you've gone for 80. I'm going to go with 87.
You're going a bit higher, yeah?
I'm going with 87.
I'm definitely thinking lower 80s, because I feel like it's going to be glitchy. I don't know why.
Glitchy?
I've just got a sneaky suspicion. But that I'd rather it, like, out of all of its problems, to be glitchy, because that's so much easier to fix.
Yeah.
And if it is super story driven, that's already a win for me.
Yeah, well, we shall see.
We shall see.
Later on in the podcast. Also, we're going to be talking a little bit about Mortal Kombat 11.
Well, a very little bit.
Briefly. We're going to be talking... taking the Discord questions from the guys over at Patron and the Discord. And we're also going to be reading some of the YouTube comments for those of which that we've had over the time of last week and this week. But first up, Katana Zero.
Ooh.
What is Katana Zero? Well, I shall tell you because I've played it and I've completed it and I'm still playing it, even after completing it, and that is a rarity.
None of this end game nonsense. You're just playing more game.
I'll get into it. Katana Zero, according to the words of the developer, the words. Easter egg in there for those of you who recognise that. Katana Zero is a stylish neo-noir.
Just start that one again.
Behemoth thing over again. The neo-noir. Neo-noir action platformer featuring. Just ignore it. Just ignore it and it'll go away. Action platformer featuring breakneck action and instant death combat, slash dash and manipulate time to unravel your past in a beautifully brutal acrobatic display. This is a game developed by ASCII Soft. Don't know, I heard of them. I think this is their first major kind of release. Published by developer Devolver Digital.
They've done stuff, right?
Devolver Digital are huge. They've always got their own display at E3 and stuff. They always do their own thing. They're a huge publisher. And get Katana Zero. It's a side-scrolling action game kind of thing with a really deep narrative. Stylistically it's like pixel art, but you've got that neo. It's kind of 80s themed, but it's got like that VHS aesthetic.
Where it's like crackly and like static and stuff.
It looks really good. It looks stylish, and if you look at the gameplay, you know instantly if it's the kind of game for you. You know, it's got that kind of thing. And quickly, a key bits of information here is that it was £13.49. I played it on the Switch. I think it might be on the PC too. Yeah,
it's definitely on PC. I don't think it's on like PS4.
Yeah, it's just Switch and PC. So it's for your kind of indie games.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely
platforms. £13.49 in the UK, $14.99 if you're US based. So it's not a full priced thing. It's not even half priced. It's slightly less than that. Usually it'd be like 20 quid or whatever for a half price game. But there you go. Metacritic score is on 84% so far based on 21 reviews. And the user score, notably, is 8.4, which is exactly the same as the critic score based on 37 reviews, which is really good. The reviews are low. Obviously, not a lot of people playing it. It is an indie game. Yep. We get that, right? But it's unusual for the user score to be as high as the Metacritic score. Why? Because there's no flipping microtransactions. Why? Because you pay a price, you get a game. Why? Because it's just pure fun for the most part. That's why. That's why the user scores are high.
It's none of this, $60, 50 quid nonsense. Yeah. It's like
obviously you're making concessions with the price like that. Yeah. The game is only about 5 hours long. Although, having completed it, I feel like it needs to be more. Like I want to play it more. So I've instantly gone back into it and playing it again because on the second playthrough it's so much easier because you're used to all the controls and that, and it's more enjoyable. But I mean the main draw of it, the main mechanics in the game. There's this rewind mechanic. So it takes part of a period over a sequence of screens, right? So you're in one area. You've got many different bad guys on different levels, whatever. If you die, one hit, death, you rewind back to the beginning of the level. So you might rewind 30 seconds or so. Like it's supposed to be difficult, but it's not difficult and punishing to the extent where you're going to lose half an hour of progress like you might do in a Souls type game or something like that.
Yeah, that's what really frustrated me about it, because you die and then you've got to do not only all the work again, but you've got to sit through like a loading screen and then kill all the guys to then get to the boss, and it's such a pain. But from what I've seen of this, it's just like boom, bang.
I don't like that kind of gameplay. But I really like Katana Zero because it's instant. You can just press the button, you're straight back in straight away, and you can try and correct your mistakes. So that's the rewind mechanic. It's like a rewind mechanic, but essentially you're just starting again at the beginning of the level. That's the aesthetic. It's like the tape rewinding. And then there's a slowdown mechanic which you can use if you press the left trigger key, and this allows you to slow the action for a limited period of time, and you've got a battery indicator for the amount of slowdown that you've got on the top left. It does recharge if you use it quite quickly, but you only get, it's like 5 or 6 seconds of slowdown. So if you're in a particularly difficult sequence where there's a couple of enemies or even more with guns as well as different, melee weapons or whatever, you can go at it slow for a certain amount of time. And another key mechanic in the game, which is kind of linked to the story, is the dialogue. So there's a multiple choice dialogue mechanic in it. Although there is a timer, so if you run out of time, it'll just default to whatever option you've highlighted. But also you can interrupt. So there's a certain limited, even a smaller limited amount of time which you can interrupt the person who's talking in the dialogue system, and just interrupt with whatever is on the screen if you want.
That's cool.
So it's a little bit of freedom there in terms of the dialogue, and that links to the story, right? So one thing that wasn't prevalent in the promotional material before the release was the fact that there is a really interesting and in-depth story in the game. And you take the role of a katana wielding hitman, right? So you get allocated missions, or you get like a file or a dossier every day. There's like 10 days or something, and you've got a mission to do every single day. Assassinate this person, but you've got to get past their guards and whatever. So that's the basic outline of what you're doing. I'm going to keep this completely spoiler free. There's going to be no spoilers in this, to a point. I'm going to give a brief outline of what you do. So that's how you interact with in between these days. There are periods of downtime where you, a lot of the time, go back to your own apartment. The story unravels there, as well as in a couple of other locations where you're interacting with various 2 or 3 different NPCs at least, where you can have where you're using your dialogue system. But your character has a deep past, and he has psychological issues. So you're trying to figure out certain things about yourself and about what's happening to you. So there's a lot going on there. Without going to too much of a spoiler, it's intriguing, it's captivating, and it got me through it. Really, it's quite captivating. So there's no issue in terms of wanting to see more, because the story is really good. And I think this is a large part of why the reviewers really like it, is because, especially indie games with good stories, personal stories. Yeah. I think reviewers really like that, and that's why it's reviewing really highly. Yeah. There are 2 endings which I've seen, although I don't believe the game does branch at all. I think there's just 2 endings. So that is a bit of a spoiler. But there is one true end. One of the endings is like a non-ending, but maybe there's more. I don't know. I haven't really researched it, but there is one kind of true ending, which it's supposed to end like. So that's it in terms of story-wise. In terms of the action combat, so obviously you've got your katana. There's enemies that shoot at you. There's people with melee combat, as well as they've got other weapons too, like a metal bar or something. So you can reflect bullets that are shot at you if you use your katana. So it's like the Jedi kind of thing. Because
you die in one hit, right?
Yeah,
but so do they.
Death. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You also get to pick up various projectiles, like there's a lamp or a kind of bust. Like a little.
Like a
bust of a character or whatever, and there's bottles or whatever, various different things, and like a butcher's knife or whatever.
Well, you like chuck them at people?
Yeah, you just pick them up and chuck them, and then they die, and it's really satisfying. Cool. And there's a lot of like gruesomeness in it, like blood going everywhere, and there's a couple of scenes with like torture. There's a theme of torture and stuff, and so it's.
Do you unlock like new weapons or new swords or like extra abilities or anything like that?
No, not at all.
So there's not really a progression. It's just like gameplay and story.
Yeah, the progression is the story.
Okay.
The story, that's the only progression that's in it. There isn't any
leveling up.
No, there's none of that. It is quite basic in those terms, but it doesn't need it. No. I don't think it needs it. The levels are varied enough to keep it interesting. Yeah. And there's different challenges in the environment as well, so you get sometimes there's like laser beams where you can turn on and off to unlock different areas, and if people are chasing you, you can put the laser beams on and just vaporize them. It's quite cool. And there's like turrets and things, and it's quite satisfying, even though there's no huge development in terms of what you can do.
Gotcha.
There is a level timer that goes in the top center of the screen. So every level you've only got a certain amount of time. The way it works is that your character has a precognition ability, and this is tied into the story, right? So you've got this ability to plan the level. So if you think about it, all you're doing when you're playing is you're planning in your mind how you're going to...
Right, okay.
So if you die, that plan won't work. Let's try a different plan.
Gotcha.
So eventually when you get to the end of the level, it's like, yeah, that's the plan. That's the way I'm going to do it. And so what happens then is you get a replay of everything that you did. And if you if you slowed it down during the level, it'll just run back in like real time, so you can see how you did it in real time.
So he's like thinking about doing it, dies there. Okay, now I'll try something different. And then when you actually do it successfully, when you watch it, that's him actually doing it.
Exactly.
In real time, real speed.
Exactly.
That's cool.
That is cool. That's a cool little hook there. And the way that the timer works with that is that you can only precog for you've only got a certain amount of precog ability. So if you got like 30 or like say a minute or two of a timer on your level, the way that weaves into the story is that you haven't got the mental capacity to predict it more than the timer. So you've only got two minutes worth of precog ability or whatever. So that's how that works together. So there are various different types of gameplay. So you've got like stealth sequences, which you kind of would expect if you're a katana wielder, right?
Yeah, like a ninja.
A lot of the levels you've just got to kill everybody, right? But some of the levels specifically as part of your mission to not kill anybody, and you've got to kind of stealth your way through.
No collateral damage type thing.
Although you could get through it, but there are consequences with the narrative. Although how deep they are is yet to be decided. But you don't have to do it completely stealth. Okay. There's also a minecart sequence, which sounds interesting, like Indiana Jones type thing.
Yeah.
Where you're jumping in and out of minecart. There's alternate playable characters. There's a couple of... Well, there's one, I'm not spoiling it too much, but there's a couple of instances where you're not the same person. There's also a motorcycle chase on a highway, which, what game isn't complete without a motorcycle highway chase?
This just sounds like the ultimate 80s action movie.
Yeah. It's really cool. And there's bosses as well, which make it really interesting.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the bosses, it's so satisfying when you finally do it. I kind of get the satisfaction that people feel when they play Sekiro now, although this is like a scaled down version.
Yeah.
People might be on a bus for an hour or two on a Sekiro game or whatever, and that's just too much for me. I haven't got that time. If I'm sitting there playing this, it might take me 20 minutes through the boss, but once you do it, because you figure out all the moves and the patterns and stuff, it's very satisfying, and it's awesome. It's really cool. So it's kind of a very light type of Soulsborne type of gameplay. It's like an indie version. But there you go. So I really like it. For 5 hours gameplay for £13.50, you decide whether it's worth it based on what I've said. I've got a couple of reviews here to kind of indicate where the reviewers are falling on this. Screen Rant has the 100% review, 5 out of 5 score. They say it's one of 2019's best games thus far, and this is why I feel like a lot of the games journalists who are playing it and that I've seen on Twitter and stuff is that they really like it because it's just a quirky little indie game with a nice narrative and something that's you can get your teeth into.
And it's got like its own unique style, and it's quite like artsy.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit like, in terms of style, it's a bit like Hotline Miami, right? But Hotline Miami is a top-down game. It's the same kind of thing. One hit, you're dead, and then you restart the level. But this is because this is a side scroller. It's got that. So it's a mix between Hotline Miami and something like Celeste for me.
Yeah.
Celeste is a really good comparison because it's the same thing. You die, it's a side scroller, but Celeste is a bit more in depth in terms of the mechanics of it. You've got like double jumps, and you learn new jumps as you go along. There's more progression in that. But if any of you are interested, or you know Hotline Miami and Celeste, and you like those two games, then I definitely suggest this one to you because it is a lot of fun, especially when you learn to use the moves together, because you've got a roll, you've got a single jump, you've got your katana for killing as well as deflecting, and also you've got a slow down time as well. So once you're more familiar with what you can do and you can do it in kind of real time, it becomes quite satisfying to just take them out really quickly and fluidly.
Gotcha.
And that's where the satisfaction comes in. That's why I'm replaying it now, because the early levels were a bit of just getting used to how to do the moves and that. Yeah. But now it's just like I'm blasting through them quite easily because I'm used to the moveset, and it's quite enjoyable.
Nice.
So, yeah, I can't do justice in this kind of mini review to the story, because the story is well worth it for my money. I think anyone who likes a good enthralling story with a bit of mystery, a bit of intrigue in there, then check it out. The worst review I've seen on Metacritic so far was Game Revolution gave it a 3 out of 5, so it turns up a 60%. Yeah. So they're good. That they've noted. I don't have a quote for them, but they've noted good and bad points here. The good is the wonderfully expressive pixel art, great synth-filled soundtrack. I wasn't a great fan of the soundtrack. The music is good, but it's not to my taste, right? Right. There's a distinction there. I'm not saying the music's bad at all. It's good music, but it's not something that I
would choose
enjoy.
To listen to.
Yeah. So the gameplay core is fun and satisfying. However, they go into the bad. Story goes nowhere pretty quickly. This is relevant, okay? The story is good, but it's too short, and I feel like they've set it up for a sequel too obviously.
Oh, okay.
The story gets to a point where you're like, right, it's really good, and it's kind of complete, but there's a loose end, and you're like, oh shit. I mean, where's the fucking rest of the story, please?
Yeah, there's no conclusion.
It can be a good thing or a bad thing. If you're the kind of person who feels like they didn't get complete closure on a story like in that way, it might irritate you. However, if you're not bothered and you enjoy the gameplay enough and you enjoy what is there of a story, because what is there is really good, then it won't bother you. For me, I was kind of a little bit frustrated, but now I'm playing it again. I'm like, well, it's not the main crux of the game. I'm enjoying playing the game anyway. I didn't actually pay the $13.50 because I used my Nintendo points. I got it down to like £7. So I paid £7 for it. I got 4 or 5 hours out of it, and a lot of people use the price per hour equation to figure out whether it's worth the time. But what they don't take into consideration is if you play it through again. So if you play it through twice, you get 10 hours worth of gameplay for like the £13 or whatever, £13.50. So, I mean, I'm playing it through twice, and I'm going to get more than £1 an hour. Yeah. But I think it's worth it for me personally.
Yeah, it's definitely one I've had my eye on since it. I think I saw it at a Nintendo Direct or something quite recently, and I just thought that just looks like solid fun.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to pick it up when I've got a bit more time.
Good fun action game, and it's quite light too. So the other couple of bad points: controls aren't precise enough for later levels. I think this is just a guy who just can't get used to the controls. I think that maybe he doesn't like I think it's maybe a limitation to the Switch. Maybe some problems with the Switch, whatever. I didn't find this at all. Controls aren't precise enough for late levels. Maybe he's just getting frustrated because it gets harder. I mean, that's how games go. Maybe he's just a scrub. I don't know.
Maybe he's just not good enough.
He's just a scrub. An unfocused pile of mechanical distractions, he says here. I'm not sure what he's... this is the only review that I've seen that had these last two gripes like this, but I don't know whether they're unfounded or not. Maybe they are relevant, but still I didn't find them to be the case. And if I was reviewing it, I'd give it a solid... For what it is, value for money, 8 out of 10.
Yeah?
Yeah. It would be higher if it wasn't as short.
Okay.
If the story dragged on, the story was a little bit longer. If I was to rate it on the price that it is, it's always got to be in a certain context for me, right? If it was a full price game, this would easily be like a 6 out of 10. But because it's $13.50, I think it's an 8 out of 10.
Gotcha.
So, take that as whatever that means to you. I think for $13.50, you're getting an 8 out of 10 type ballpark game.
Do you know if they are planning to add like extra content or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether they're adding DLC, field DLC, paid DLC, or just going for a full-on sequel. I don't know that yet. I don't know much about ASCII Soft and what they've done in the past. I would think that Devolver Digital, they are a very pro-consumer publisher, and I would think that if they've got anything to do with it, there may be some free DLC in there. I'm not sure if they did what was that one that I played on? Let me just have a look at some of the games. Devolver Digital, and just see how they've done things in the past. Yeah, so they are the ones behind Hotline Miami, which is interesting. I'm not sure how that was supported post-launch, but there you go. And yeah, I would hope that there's some free DLC just to close off that loose end. But a sequel would be fine too. Just make it 10 hours this time, with better a little bit. I mean, obviously for a 10-hour game, you need more mechanics. You need more varied. Obviously it's just such a small team that they ran out of resources or whatever. But I think the price is fair. I really do think the price is fair for a single player, narrative-driven action game like this. I think the price is pretty fair. I got my money's worth, that's for sure.
Awesome.
So that is it. That is my mini. Well, it was kind of protracted a little bit, 20 odd minutes of Katana Zero. I enjoyed it. That's why I'm talking about it. I sometimes don't talk about games if I play them. I don't like them, but that's why I'm recommending it to you guys. For those of you who are interested in that type of gameplay, if you liked. What did I say? Celeste and Hotline Miami mashed together in a tidy katana wielding package, then check out Katana Zero.
Yeah, and we got to talk about the good games. There's too much crap that happens. So I always try and think of the good ones.
Yeah, let's talk about a crap game now, though. Let's move on.
Well, I don't even know if it's crap. I've not played it enough.
Talking of being positive, let's be negative. I'm only joking.
So I've played a very small amount of Mortal Kombat 11 because it was installing the other day, and when they let you play it but it's not the whole game yet, it's background installing,
while it's installing,
so I couldn't do the story. I couldn't do online, and there's no goddamn way I'm going near online. I don't play fighting games, but I'm just not good at them. That's just the end of it. It's just I'm not good.
You're just a scrub.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that.
It's all right to be a scrub, guys. Don't worry about being a scrub. Henry's a scrub.
I mean, but pretty much every game. I'm not very good at any of them, but hey ho.
Have fun, playing it. That's the point, right?
You do you. But I did get to play. I played the training, which was super helpful because, as I said, I'm not very good at fighting games. I need to know the way Mortal Kombat does things, because I played quite a lot of Injustice 2, which is made by the same people, made by NetherRealm. Just obviously that's DC superheroes and stuff. And they do play slightly differently. And one thing I did really like is that in terms of controls, because I don't know if this is the same for every Mortal Kombat, but I imagine it is. Or the face buttons do different limbs. So one's because you're standing sideways, right? One's your front hand for a jab. Left, the second is your backhand for a hook, and same with your legs. So I thought that was really cool, and it means that the combos look really cool because they're proper left, right, kick, blah blah blah, rapid martial arts moves and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I haven't played a lot, but I had fun. I played pretty much. I played a little bit of Scorpion, but I played a bit more of Sub-Zero, and he's, pun intended, way cooler. He's way cooler than Scorpion. Scorpion, he's got the spike on the chain. That's kind of cool. Sub-Zero can make ice axes and shit, ice spikes all the time. That's what I want.
That's what you want.
Just messing people up. But one thing that did strike me quite early on, because it's got a load of kind of microtransaction-y stuff, but I didn't really look into that because I was only playing these just quick versus battles, is it's nowhere near as rewarding in terms of gear as Injustice was. Because Injustice, it had loot boxes and stuff, which it got quite a lot of flack for. But pretty much every time you did a fight, you got stuff, gear for your different characters, and you'll normally get, most of the time you'll get something for who you're playing as, and then a couple other bits for other people. But in this, I didn't get anything. I got meters filling up for different stuff, which I didn't really understand because I didn't really look into it because I was just focused on playing. But that's the main thing I did really like about Injustice 2 was you are constantly getting stuff. You're
getting rewarded.
You're grinding without really like thinking about it. You're just playing the game, and you'll get stuff. But because it's random, it's like, oh, okay, cool. I got a different mask for Batman or whatever. But in this, it was like it felt way more drawn out, and I feel like that's to encourage this microtransaction-y stuff. Again, I can't really speak to it. I plan to play it a bit more, but it just seems
it's all geared around
a bit weird. Yeah,
the additional monetization that's in the game, which is a shame, really. I mean, assuming it's a full price game, which it probably is, right? Yeah, it's Mortal Kombat. A lot of the reviews and impressions that I've seen is that it's one of the best fighting games, if not the best fighting game out there, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of like being the front runner for this genre, the mere fact that a lot of it, or the gameplay seems to be grindy to the point where it's just trying to promote these microtransactions and additional monetization methods. It's just a shame, and it's a shame not for me because I don't like the fighting games, but it's a shame for people who do like fighting games. Whereas this is the benchmark for the genre, and like how other games in the future are going to be looking to this game. You know, if people are holding that in high regard in terms of the gameplay, it's like this is going to be the trendsetter. It seems like this is like the worst of the worst in terms of microtransactions. I mean, you get your sports games.
It just feels horrible.
Yeah.
Like Mortal Kombat is kind of the Western fighting game, because Street Fighter, Tekken, all those Japanese, and then you got Mortal Kombat's fighting the good fight for the American studios and whatnot. But then everyone in all the reviews, they're all like, oh, it's got great gameplay, great kind of kooky blockbuster story, but, and there's always this heavy but that you can like almost feel coming every time anyone's ever talking about it. And it's, but microtransaction crap, but the grindiness of like the challenge towers and stuff, which I still don't understand. Like after doing the video the other day, I tried to read up on it a bit more, but there's too many currencies that do different things.
Yeah,
I just don't get it.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, for people who like the fighting game but don't want to support microtransactions or like fighting genre, like I can't imagine how difficult it's going to be for you to make the decision, because if you buy into this game, you buy into this economy, you buy into the fact that this game supports microtransactions, and you know you're supporting that, and you're supporting developers doing that more often in the future by buying into this game. But if it's the best game of its kind, like what choice have you got? It's difficult. It's difficult because you got that moral dilemma. But game is at 83% on Metacritic. User score is 2.8 now.
It's gone down since we talked about it.
It was 3.6 when we covered it on
like 3.6 when we recorded it. 3.4 when I edited it.
Yeah,
and now it's gone down even further.
And just a couple of the user reviews. I'll just read them as they appear here. 4 out of 10. A solid fighting game that is unfortunately crippled by obscene microtransactions. The next one says single player always online progression system made towards microtransactions and gambling system in a $60 game. Thanks, but no. Next one, 0 out of 10. Thanks, NetherRealm, Warner Brothers, and ED Boon for giving us this woke, full-price, DRM-infested gambling simulator disguised as a new entry. The next one is a 0. You get the idea by now. What happened to this? Used to be the most politically incorrect game. Instead, the hot girls in sexy outfits, we get a gender-filled political, and I won't even read the rest.
That one, anytime I see that stuff, I just roll my eyes. I'm like, not everything in the world is a political agenda. If you don't like it, okay, that's fine. I really couldn't care less if the girls are fit. They're not real.
I don't care if they're covered up. I think there was the gripe that they were covered up instead of having the tits out or something.
It's like, what argument do you have?
Come on, guys.
I know
you're 13 of and only just discovering yourselves. But there's Pornhub for that kind of shit. Don't try and force people to get tits out in games, and then they can't win, right? If they got the tits out too much, like the jiggle physics are on point or whatever. It's like, sexualizing women. You can't fucking win. And then 5 out of 5. That was actually 4 that I read. This is going to be the 5th. There's another 0. It says microtransactions and grindy, terrible progression system in service to their microtransactions, always on DRM, and that's just a snippet, right? That's just 5 in a row that I've read. I mean, that's a random distribution of that just goes to show what people are thinking about this game. The fact that it's a 2.8 user score. Metascore is one notch below what we were talking about earlier, Katana Zero. But it's night and day difference in user score. So what's that going to? Yeah,
the gameplay is everything I thought was the case about Mortal Kombat games. Because I've played like a tiny bit of them, but it's solid fighting game mechanics, and then all the blood, all the horrible stuff. So you can do like your normal fatalities. When you get them to like the end of the thing, you got a second window to do like a super special move, which is like horrendously graphic and a big showpiece. But they also got these ones which I think are new, called fatal blows. And so when your health gets down to like the last quarter, you can do like a more powerful version of like a regular hit. So it's like a certain combos trigger it, and then it does like the X-ray thing. So one of Sub-Zero, like slide towards the guy, grab him, throw him against like an ice wall, and then to follow it up, you do like a punch through. So he smashes through the wall, and then all his like ribs and shit crack. So that does like a bunch of extra damage. Well, there's one with, I have no idea what his name is, but he's like a cowboy. He's got 2 guns. No idea what his name is. He like shoots throws some coins up, shoots them at you. They're like, go in your eyes. And then of course you get back up and you carry on fighting because it's a fighting game. Who cares why? So that, what Mortal Kombat is supposed to do, it does that really, really well.
Yeah.
And it just feels like it's Warner Brothers doing it. But then again, Ed Boon said in a rapid fire interview he would love to make a game, he didn't say it in so many words, I don't think, but a fighting game in the vein of a games as a service. So I think he's kind of keen on those mentalities as well. Yeah. I mean,
keeping it serviced into the future and that.
I mean, there are advantages to it because you can keep bringing out content, but it's also easy to fuck with and make crap.
Aaron Black.
That's it. Aaron Black
was the name of the
Definitely
character.
Wouldn't have guessed that.
So there you go. What I'm interested, before we move on, is for those of you who have got that moral dilemma of you want this game because you love your fighting games and you want to play one of the best that's out there right now, but you don't want to support the microtransaction economy. What are your thoughts and what are your feelings around that, and what's your decision ultimately? Have you decided against it because you don't want like this microtransaction bullshit? Have you bought it, and in spite of your feelings towards this type of monetization, let us know down in the comments, because obviously we're not. I mean, we got the review code, right?
Yeah.
And so neither of us have paid money for it. So none of us have invested in it in that way. So I mean, I am interested in what you guys have got to say.
And when you see stuff like this, does this push you more towards like another fighting game, like a Street Fighter or a Tekken, or I don't know, even like Smash Bros? Because Smash Bros is like, there's no like microtransactions or anything. They've only just brought out like DLC characters. It's because it's the Nintendo family friendly thing. It's not really a fighter like those, although I still would class it as, because any game involving any game involving fighting is a fighting game.
It's a fighter, no matter what you say, guys. I mean,
Wii boxing's a fighter.
Like it or not.
Accept it.
So that is it for the Mortal Kombat segment. We're now going to cut to the part we're going to film later, which is the Days Gone reading of the review. So we're going to talk about Days Gone, then we're going to come right back and then do the end of the video. So enjoy the Days Gone segment. And as if by magic, we are now in the future. Just like time traveling mysterious personnel that we are. Right? That's what we can do.
The future.
This is the future. Is it everything you thought it would be?
There's radiation outside, there's nuclear winter, everything's gone to crap.
Yeah, it's a zombie apocalypse out there, right?
Glad you got where I was
paying
going
attention.
With that.
And unfortunately, we do know now how Days Gone has been received, and it's not good.
Days been and gone.
State of Decay, Deacon John, St. John. State of Deacon John. PlayStation now have their very own State of Decay. That's what I'm trying to say.
State of Delame.
Any of those things can be true.
Insert your zombie Days Gone puns in the comments.
I was a full 15 points off. Okay, and you were 10 away. What did you say?
8.
I said you're 8 away. So Henry wins this one.
Low 80s.
Henry wins this one. So the review scores have come in, and as of time of recording, an hour after reviews have dropped on Metacritic, it's a 72 based on 64 critic scores, and it's a 72 on OpenCritic 2 based on 74 critic reviews, and that's not good. Obviously, no user scores yet, but we do have a lot of the usual suspects. So, first up, let's go to ACG, who is my preferred reviewer on YouTube. I did go to him first. Now, ACG is a mixed bag. I can't remember exactly what he... I'm not going to spoil his verdict, right? Go and see for yourself, mainly because I haven't written it down. But what he did say is that the world and the story are the highlights. The world and the story are actually pretty good, despite it's a 72. Which, for me, the story is part and parcel of what it needs to be. And the world, a good world makes a good game, right?
That's what we were predicting, like good story, but maybe not as good in other areas. And to be honest, that's the bit I'm caring. Well, story and gameplay, the two big ones for me. And if story's good, that's a win for me.
Well, he did say it's not exceptional when it comes to gameplay.
That seems to be a bit of the general consensus. It's good, but it's not anything particularly special.
The sound was particularly good, and the music was particularly good. 30 plus hours worth of game. I mean, that's reasonable. What was Red Dead? 60 hours?
Too much is what it was.
Red Dead was too much. A lot of people saying that this is too much, but let's move on. Easy Allies gave it a score of 75, and they said Days Gone is incredibly moving but occasionally frustrating. Just when you start to get burnt out on resource collection on uniform side missions, the story suddenly hooks you back in. Despite Deacon's impatience and short temper, his story is often compelling. His actions have consequences, and the map evolves as you make positive and negative changes. Unfortunately, it can also be buggy and less than believable, which is heartbreaking, and considering the care given to this world and its characters. So, a very mixed bag.
Almost sounds like it's like a very cleverly put together game, just when it's like, oh, this is getting boring now. New bit of story that's interesting.
Boom.
It sounds a bit like they've kind of padded it a bit, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, some people are saying that. Do you want to read the next one?
Yeah, IGN, they were pretty harsh. I thought within like 30 seconds they were already tearing it up. 65 they gave it. Days Gone feels bloated, like a movie that goes on for an hour longer than it needs to or should have. It's messy and confused, but peppered with genuinely thrilling encounters with rampaging hordes of zombies and occasionally breathless firefights. There's a good game in here somewhere, but it's buried in a meandering story, repetitive missions, and just too much obligatory stuff to do without an eye for the smaller details that would have given it much more character.
Guardian gave it a 3 out of 5. Days Gone is a derivative but enjoyable action adventure with a beautiful environment using AI and physics to create exciting moments of procedural entertainment. But it's a familiar tale of mankind struggling to recreate society after the end of the world, and its romantic through line are haphazardly structured and underwritten. And the characters are too busy calling each other sons of bitches and arseholes to say or do anything moving, original, or profound. Is it wrong for me to say that this sounds like it's written by a woman? This is a game of fun and fury. It's thrilling at times, but it signifies nothing. It's thrilling, but it didn't mean anything to me. I want something to mean something. Typical reviewer, if you ask me. This is why we read the reviews, so we see which ones connect with you. That one just sounds like shit to me. That's a bad review. Reviewing the reviews, it was
really fun, but it didn't make a statement.
It didn't mean anything to me. What does that tell me about the fucking game? Nothing. It tells me how you feel about the game. You fucking idiot.
Well, I guess that's what you get from a newspaper as opposed to like a specific games journalist, right? Because they'll be like, they're looking for the political meaning, and
it's horrible, man. Anyway, let's move on. Eurogamer. Do you want to read the review?
All right, Eurogamer. They gave it the. They didn't give it recommended. I can't remember.
Well, it's a review in progress. According to Metacritic, so
it's pending then.
Pending.
Eurogamer, a frequently gorgeous, sadly generic open world that runs out of steam well before its extended playtime is over. I wasn't expecting Days Gone to add anything new to the genre, but both in terms of its systems and its story, it's uninspired, which is driven home by the fact that it's endlessly, needlessly long. I'm begging you, haven't we done this enough?
This is the very worst review I could find on Metacritic. The Slant Magazine gave it a 1.5 star. They weren't happy. The game meets the baseline level of quality we might accept from a big budgeted joint, yet it remains a tiresome, empty experience. Days Gone is the apotheosis, right, of the more philosophy. More bars to fill, more gates to progress, more hours of playtime, more zombies per square inch, because more is supposed to fill the hole where some semblance of meaning ought to be, bridging the gap between one mind-numbing mission template and the next. It's the purest example yet of the video game as mere content to be consumed, down to the very fact that each storyline you're supposed to be emotionally invested in is marked with a completion percentage. Days Gone is a void.
Well, just in case you didn't know what apotheosis means, because I didn't, this guy is obviously being a bit pretentious.
Thesis.
Defined as noun, the highest point in the development of something, the culmination or climax. So basically, he could have said the culmination of, or the apex of.
Well, you know,
apotheosis.
You had to get in the fact that he's clever there.
Intelligent signalling. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, those reviews aside. A lot of it is, this game's too long. Where were those cries when Red Dead Redemption was reviewed, huh? Maybe it's the case that these missions are more generic than Red Dead Redemption. Maybe it's like too long because it's not fresh enough, whereas Red Dead Redemption maybe felt fresher. Maybe that's the key difference here. Whereas personally, I felt Red Dead Redemption is way too long. I'm only still like 30 hours into that 60-hour behemoth. Right?
That killed me, man. Like, I genuinely was cracking right up over that.
That was funny. Anyway, so what's the difference? Like, why is this 30-hour game too long, whereas a 60-hour game is fine, reviewers?
Because it's not made by Rockstar, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love it if Rockstar came out and did like an Undead Nightmare DLC that was just Days Gone, but better. Like, instead of a motorbike, you've got your horses and that. But they did like, we're going to throw loads of zombies at you, and that would be funny.
Okay, sure, I haven't really read the Kotaku one, but they liked the thrilling horde encounters, finally getting to see Pacific Northwest for myself, and disliked bugs, a bland story, lots of overfamiliar gameplay. There's no review on this. It's currently review in progress. There's no actual score on this yet, I don't think. So there you have it. And that kind of sums up what a lot of people are thinking about it. There are bugs. A lot of reviews have said there are bugs, like some glitches here and there, which can be ironed out, obviously.
Yeah, they've said nothing like crazy game breaking, but some like visual ones and collision detection ones, and obviously some like falling through world ones.
Yeah,
but that
pop in here and there. A bland story. I've heard like the story is pretty good. Some people, that's a mixed one.
Some people really didn't like it. Some people said it was up and down. Some people really did like it.
Yeah, lots of overly familiar gameplay. So you tag your enemies, la Ubisoft type of thing. So it's quite generic. My question is, had this game released 3 or 4 years ago, would the review been higher? If that is the case, then aren't we being objective enough? Because it doesn't matter when the game was released. It doesn't matter what the other games are against it, because there are so many awesome games that we've all played in the past and loved. But if we played them now and reviewed them now, they'd review a lot less than they once did.
Have we been spoiled with other Sony exclusives with like God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they're all massively critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
Like, Spider-Man, no one ever talks about how the world isn't actually very original. What makes it good is swinging around. Yeah,
that's a good point. Are people just expecting too much from Sony and are disappointed to the fact that it's just another open world game? What were they expecting? Like, how can you criticize an open world game for being open world? Because it doesn't bring, this is the biggest cliche that I've read, doesn't bring anything new to the table. I wish I could just like obliterate that expression from anyone's reviews ever.
But the reviews aren't bringing anything new to the table.
Exactly. It's literally hypocritical.
Yeah.
They're not bringing anything new to the table. Think of a new expression, dipshit.
Well, like, the reason Spider-Man well, main reason, top of the pile. The reason Spider-Man's so fun is because web swimming's awesome, and I think with Days Gone, traveling the world on the bike, if that's really fun, that's gonna like keep me like hooked. Just traveling, like being in a world, getting around it has to be good.
Yeah. So it's a mixed bag, and I'm conflicted. Although I'm actually a little bit more excited to play it now, and I'll tell you why. Because going into a game like God of War and going into Spider-Man, knowing that everybody loves it, I don't know what it is with me. I'm just some sort of...
It doesn't live up to it.
Yeah, well, it's not that. It's like, oh, it has to be good because all these people are saying it. So I'm playing it and I'm looking for criticisms, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a game that gets reviewed bad, I'm always going into it looking for my fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a chance.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, this has to be fun. It's got to be better than they're saying, right? I always go in with I try and prove people wrong. I'm just an argumentative prick.
Well, I definitely like if our review copy ever shows up or gets delivered, then that'll be great. But if not, I'll still buy it anyway because I'll like. It is my kind of game, just a single player story thing. And even if it's not, a 10 out of 10, a 7 out of 10 is not bad at all. People are like super negative.
State of the case, 7 out of 10, and I loved that game. Yeah. Dying Light, the original Dying Light was 71%.
Dying Light's
and
really
that was one
good.
of the best zombie open world games, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's parkour in killing zombies. We've seen stuff like that before in games, but.
So this is why it's important, especially when you've got like a 7 out of 10. Just read the fine print, actually read the reviews, and pick out what people are having gripes at. If you don't, I mean, I haven't played an open world game since I put Red Dead Redemption 2 down just after Christmas, right? And so I'm not
either, really.
I haven't got, I'm not open world fatigued right now. I'm really ready for this game. I really am. So it depends on you personally. If you're not after an open world generic game, if you played Far Cry New Dawn, or if you played what was the other one that came out, any other open world game that was released in the meantime, you might not appreciate this, but there might be reasons why you like it too.
I know whenever I watch reviews for anything, it all comes down to how they explain themselves. But when they explain it, I'm like, they think that's negative, but I feel like I'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
Or they like that. I don't think I will. Because I'm thinking critically about the way they're being critical.
Mm-hmm. No, of course you have to. You have to be that. Yeah, because I think the problem with the reviewers, and I say it quite often, is that they're so laden with their own opinions. It's like, just tell me how it plays on a technical level. Tell me what it looks like. Tell me how it sounds. Tell me all the facts about the game. And then tell me why you didn't like certain things. Don't say this game is too open world and too tropey. That doesn't give me any information. What that tells me is that you're sick of open world games, and it tells me you're a reviewer for a living. You don't want to spend the 30 hours playing this game because you're being paid to. I mean, that doesn't tell me what my experience is going to be like at all, because I'm not going to be paid to play this game. Like, woe is me, I get paid to play video games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I feel like a lot of reviewers, when a game comes out, if it's not like really good, if it doesn't get through that threshold, they're just like, oh, great, because it is a job. They've got to rush through it and get it done. But
saying that, we might play it and fucking hate it.
Yeah, we might.
We're sticking up for it here, and that's just my natural against the grain.
Pick on someone your own side.
You always go against the grain. I'm just a fucking argumentative bastard.
Well, the next one after this I've got that I'm looking forward to will be Rage 2, which is also an open world one. So it'd be interesting to see if that gets the same criticisms or not.
I guess it all boils down to the gameplay.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my theory anyway. This is speculation, right? If you're enjoying the gameplay loop, it doesn't matter how grand your game is. I've said that in the past, right? So if you're enjoying the gameplay like 4 out of 10, then a 30-hour game is going to be great. That's what happened to me with Red Dead Redemption. I didn't enjoy the gameplay. Like the shooting wasn't fun. The missions were too restrictive. You go outside of what the game wants you to do in terms of the mission, you get a fail notification. It's like it didn't seem like a lot of, it was an open world game, but it seemed a bit too linear sometimes. The gameplay, just the shooting, just the basic shooting, aiming and shooting, wasn't as funny as even the first game. So I thought that Red Dead Redemption was too long because of that, right? However, if you like the gameplay in Days Gone, and you might do, and People different tastes. You might enjoy an 8 out of 10. A 30-hour game might not even be long enough for you.
Yeah, exactly.
If you don't mind the open world tropes, if you enjoy that, if you haven't played loads in the past, if you're a newcomer to open world games, if you're a newcomer to gaming in its entirety, these reviews pretty much don't mean shit to you, right?
Yeah. And when it comes to open world games specifically, when they're really long, because generally they are, because it takes time to like even cross the world before you even get to a mission. Open world games live and die by how fun being in the world is.
True.
So if it's fun, you're gonna doesn't really matter how long it is, so long as it's still fun.
Yeah.
But if it's boring, if it is as repetitive as people say, and fundamentally you're just not digging it, you're probably not going to be into it.
Anyway, so that is it. 7 out of 10 ballpark for Days Gone. Doesn't mean it's a bad game. What it means is you have to pay specific attention to what the reviewers are saying to see if it appeals to you or not. And I feel like this is one of those games that I will enjoy because I like the setting, I like a good detailed world, and I like a decent story to pull me through it. And I just like the aesthetic, the biker thing, right? And I feel like I'm really going to enjoy it, so I'm going to pick it up. Despite 7 out of 10, because that's a bad score.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anyway, that's how I feel about it. How do you guys feel? You're definitely going to pick it up, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Whether we get
the code shows up
or not. But there we have it. Let's go back in time now to the later part of the podcast, or the later part of the podcast that we filmed earlier, right? Because that makes sense.
Time travel.
Woo! So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the Days Gone segment. That was good, wasn't it?
Oh, what a good
game.
Good segment.
It was great. It was great that we were good with how good we were with the review.
Yeah, we were definitely accurate.
We were one of us was definitely
those
accurate.
Reviews. Well, they were something.
There were some awesome reviews of them, guys.
How well written.
They were the best. Right, we're going to move on now to the questions from the patrons. Now, Patreon is a website that people can go to and support our content and help us support bringing content to YouTube. For those of you who are not familiar with it, you can go there and sign up for a monthly pledge to help us bring these videos, because being a creator on YouTube, believe it or not, is fucking difficult. Okay, we don't know from week to week how much revenue YouTube are going to throw our way, like the pitiful fools that we are. They can decide, oh, maybe you'll have a good week, maybe you'll have a bad week, and then we've still got to pay bills no matter what they throw at us. That's what Patreon steps in, and you guys step in to try and help us, because without your support and your donations, we wouldn't be able to operate. That's for sure. We wouldn't be doing the content that we're doing right now, and and in return for your patronage, you get early access to the podcast for a couple of days, as well as access to the Patreon Discord, where you can chat with us at any time you want, ask us questions, as well as ask questions for the podcast. And you get access to the pretty good it's the Dad Jokes channel on the Discord, which is worth its weight in gold, honestly. It is something special. Some awesome contributions to the Dad Jokes channel. You thought the jokes would cringe you on the videos. Oh my God, you need to read the Dad Jokes channel on the Discord. We are ultimately very grateful for everyone who does take the time and effort and contributes money to the Patreon on the Discord. That's why I take so long to mention that in the podcast, because like I said, without you guys we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be doing this. So eternal gratitude to you guys. So let's move on to some of the awesome questions from the awesome patrons. First up, Earthworm Ben. Okay, it's a Mortal Kombat related question. I pre-ordered Mortal Kombat 11 from a good ethical online retailer a few months ago due to a similar promise they have as Amazon, where you get the lowest price. I have now paid only £35 with cash only just going out of my bank. The game has risen to £41. So does that actually put an argument against never pre-order, as I can cancel before it's shipped in the next day or so, and return the game for a full refund if I find out the game is a train wreck, as long as I haven't opened the product? I guess. I mean, you got to think of it in terms of points for and points against, right? This is definitely a point in favor, because you're getting the price, lowest price possible. So if it does release at £30 or whatever retail, you get it for that £30, no matter if it was £35 when you placed your pre-order. So that's good. And also they've kept it to £35 even though it's raised to £45. So that's £41 even, and that's good. You can return it for a full refund if it's still in its package. That's good too. I don't see the problem with doing that, and it's definitely an option for people who, in spite of all the other issues that come with pre-ordering, you might want to use this as an option. I think it's perfectly legitimate in terms of someone who wants to, because the main reason for not pre-ordering is, you incentivize people to not finish the games. You don't know what the game's going to be like. You don't know how it's going to review. It might be completely shit and filled with microtransactions like this game is.
Yeah.
So in light of that, you might have pre-ordered it for £35, only had the money just taken out of your bank account as it's released, and then you learn that it's shit and send it back without playing it. I don't see the problem with that.
Yeah, I guess you haven't really lost anything. My question would be, because I don't know, does that 35 is that the only price for the pre-order? Does it then go up to a regular price once it is out? Because then that's definitely like, yeah, I'll get it cheaper if I get it earlier. Yeah. But then I also think, I don't really know, but I imagine when you return it and do get the refunds, the only people losing money there are the retailer, not the publishers or anything, because they've already got their cut of the sale. So Amazon or whoever have sent that, and then when you return it, Amazon then have to cover the refund cost themselves. I don't know for sure, but
I think the way that happens is that they get them in. They ship them to retail, right? The publishers ship them to retail. So once that shipping's been done, the retailer then has already paid for it, essentially. Yeah. So the retailer is just selling off stock from then on.
Yeah.
So if you return it to the retailer doesn't have to pay the publisher because they've already paid for it. So the retailer, what it does then is just recycles it and sells it again. And if not, then they put discounts or whatever. And they end up in bargain bins Fallout 76 did if nobody buys them.
Joe, but at that point, the money's already gone to the publisher, so it's not like your returning pre-order is making a stand or anything like that.
Well, it is in a way that if you say 10,000 people or even 100,000 people return the pre-order, which isn't likely to happen because it's faff just returning the game, and it has to be said that if you're not the kind of person to be returning games, then this probably won't work for you because you can't be asked to return it or whatever. It might not be the best option. But if enough people return the games, what happens then is that Amazon feel the brunt of that, and say it's Amazon as a hypothetical, they've got 10,000 extra copies that they wouldn't have shipped. So what they do is when they'll run out of stock slower, so they won't order more from the publisher. So what would happen is they would run out of stock and order more from the publisher, so the publisher would get more sales. But if Amazon have got loads of stock to carry, there would be a knock-on effect eventually to the publisher because Amazon don't order as many.
I suppose it's a longer.
It's a longer term reprisal, I guess, or problem for the publisher. But in terms of Amazon, I mean, if it is Amazon, I don't know who it is,
whomever it is.
But there you go. So I don't think there's a problem with that. I mean, as a general rule, I know everyone says, you can't pre-order no matter what because it's blah, 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 because it's bad, because you're promoting these things. But you've got to take it on a very personal case-by-case basis. I think that there's so many factors involved, especially when it comes to publishers that you might trust and games that you've already played or had hands-on playing, or games that you've already seen, or series that you're already invested in, or developers that you trust, publishers or whatever. I think there's sometimes there's reasons why pre-ordering is not a problem, okay? But as a general rule, as an influencer, as YouTube likes to call me, and as a message should be sent to communities is, don't pre-order. I never say never pre-order. Say don't pre-order as a general rule. Only very specifically if you think that, because it's very nuanced, right? You've got to look at the variables and think whether it's going to be a stupid game with loads of microtransactions like this, or whether you can get your money back if you want to. There's a lot more to it than just black and white, is what I'm trying to say.
You just got to be, if you are choosing to pre-order, because that's your prerogative, you've got to be aware that there are obvious risks to you as a consumer in terms of, what if this product is not what it was sold as because I didn't know from reviews or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Just buyer beware.
Yeah, look after yourself, mate. I mean, make your own judgment, make your own calculations.
Yeah.
And don't always believe 100% what people say. There you go. Next question.
Okay, this is from Metal Shark. If you could go on holiday in any game for a week, minus the SO, and I assume that's significant other, right? So like your wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Where would you go, and what would you do? Please note this question is only eligible for the Melanin Challenge who haven't been abroad this month. So this is just for me.
Why wouldn't I be eligible for this question? Does he not think I'm going to be here to answer it? Or
well, you've been on one holiday, so you're now never allowed to go on any.
I'm not allowed to go on a game holiday. Okay.
Well, you've been on like 3 holidays since I started here anyway. So.
That's a lie. It's 2, right?
Oh, you went to
Center
Parks, Disney Florida, and Canary Islands.
Do you want to know how many of them holidays that I booked personally?
Well, I mean,
0.
Yeah, but you're a one unit. Mr. and Mrs. Evans.
My wife works hard, right? And she makes all the money in our relationship. I won't deny it. She's the money earner. I mean, yeah. I'm on a YouTube budget, so what's that tell you? So if she earns this money working hard and she wants to book a holiday, who am I to say no?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm sacrificing my time making content in order to keep the wife happy. And for those of you who have wives, keeping the wife happy is part of being happy yourself.
What's the adage? Happy wife, happy life.
That's the one.
Yeah, there you go.
I live by it.
Where are we going on our holiday? So it is holiday, right? For a week. Holiday in any game for a week. What's going? Maybe one of the places in Tomb Raider was in the first of the reboot trilogy. It's like a tropical island in the middle of a storm.
Mm-hmm.
Although getting through the storm would be pretty crap, but it's just like a nice tropical island. There's weird tribal people there, but I'll just run away. Well, I think it'd be a nice little holiday spot for just a week. I might not make it out, but I think it'd be quite nice.
You think? Nice.
Where else?
So, in this scenario, would the NPCs all be there? Would the bad people all be there? That's the question. That's the variable, isn't it?
Where would
Can
you
you
go
just turn off all the, or just want the environment and just appreciate the environment?
Or if we pick a more friendly environment, go to what's the place? Delfino Island or something in Mario Sunshine, because it's just like a old Mediterranean-y village town. Just nice. I'm sure you could get some lovely food there.
Yeah, I'm sure the viewers would have some awesome responses to this. And obviously we've only got 2 brains, and you've got numerous thousands between you. I'm hoping once you divide all the half brains and stuff. So let us know where you would go on holiday in any game world. I'm sure you've got some interesting answers. I'm not eligible, so I can't fucking answer. So screw you, Melchor. Next up, Moiro Engetsu. That's a stunning name. A question to add onto Metal Sharks. If you could live in any game world as a normal civilian, which would it be? For instance, if you choose Skyrim, you would not be a Dragonborn. You would end up being a random shopkeep in a random place or something like that. I think in terms of game worlds, I always think back to GTA 5 because it's just
life, isn't it?
It's pretty cool, right? There's a lot of crime. Don't get me wrong, but you could be like a policeman.
Yeah,
I mean, you keep your life interesting then, wouldn't it?
I mean, my instinctive...
A lot of drugs, a lot of hookers. I mean, what's not to like?
Well, there you go. My instinctive response in my head to this was Spider-Man on PS4 because it's New York, so that'd be cool. I've never been to New York. I think that'd be pretty awesome. And Spider-Man's knocking about.
Yeah.
And he's super friendly. Like, he's doing finger guns and high-fiving people.
There's a lot of bad guys, though.
It's worth the risk.
I'm thinking Watch Dogs 2, right? There's not that many bad guys.
Is that in Chicago? No, the first one's in Chicago. Where's the
the second one is
San Francisco or something?
Yeah. And that's a nice game world.
Cool.
And because you're a hacker, the bad guys are these big corporations, so the streets are pretty clean.
Yeah, street level threats quite minimal.
So I mean, I'm thinking that'd be a nice place, and you get to do selfies with doggos and that.
It's all about
that'd be cool. And there's San Francisco is a nice city, right?
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
So yeah, I mean, And again,
I do like the idea that you're not the hero in this, though.
Yeah.
But because that really limits it. Because I'd be like, oh, like the world of God of War is like really pretty and really nice.
I wouldn't go there.
Yeah, but when there's gods and stuff knocking about and ugly monsters, I can't be dealing with that. I'm just a little human. No time for that.
Wouldn't do that. That's
Not
for sure.
For me.
I've answered that question. Next up, Super Flea, and you're going to read this
Super
one?
Flea.
Who's a new
How did that pasty Welsh skin favour in the direct sunlight, dude? Doesn't take long for us Welshies to burn, lol. So that's the first little question.
Yeah, shout out to Super Flea, who is a new subscriber to Patron, who popped up this week. So how does that wait? Welsh skin favour in the direct sunlight. Well,
you've done all right.
I have to obviously. It's like a game, right? It's like you have to go from shade to shade, because I don't like putting sun cream on because it gets all like it's horrible and you get sand on it and it sticks to you and you're like, oh fuck. So
do you not wear any sun cream?
I do when I have to. When there's not enough shade cover.
Yeah,
I go from cover to cover to cover, right? And sometimes if I'm in a pool, I stick some on your forehead because it goes all shiny in your nose and that. But yeah, it's not so bad. I mean, I get a bit of burn for like a bit, but then it only takes a day to go brown, and then
it turns into a nice tan.
Yeah, I did all right. It's probably as brown as I've ever been. Probably.
I think you're already fading.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the way you can tell that I've got. You see my tan line there. You probably can't see it on the screen as well, but but yeah, you can see how white behind my watch is. I mean, that is pretty brown.
It's good,
pretty brown, man.
Yeah.
There you go. Anyway,
so
what is the question?
The actual questions. Number 1, do you think physical games will eventually be produced on disposable flash drives as games get bigger? That's been my thought for a few years now. So we'll just take that one for now. I think that's certainly possible if physical continues to exist. I mean, there is a decline in it, but there's definitely still a big demand for it. Like when I did the video on it last week, the comments were quite mixed about, I don't care about physical, I buy all digital, and then, I will only ever buy physical. There is still very much demand for physical. It depends on the price point for flash drives.
Yeah. CDs are it's such old technology now, and it's so easily scratched and stuff. You'd have thought that the next generation of consoles, and this might be a good point, that next generation of consoles might do what, say, Nintendo Switch has done. It's just have little cartridges. It's just like
the amount of data you've got on that cartridge to run a game like Breath of the Wild. It's huge on that tiny cartridge. I got quite nostalgic when I opened it up. I was like, oh wow, it's a cartridge. Yeah, I think
it all depends on the price, really.
Yeah, CDs. You're right. They're too kind of fragile, and the amount of data they can store is quite limited.
And you think in terms of the hardware itself on the next generation, in terms of the design of it, right? They're always trying to go smaller and lighter. And if you think you can remove the whole disk drive and just have like a little slot for a card, although in a box, it's not so impressive if you open a box, if you buy a box game and there's like just a little card there. It's not as impressive when you do that on the Switch. Smaller boxes.
Well, there's all the wasted space on the Switch box because the thing's that big and there's all this extra plastic. Better for the environment if they're smaller.
Yeah,
they don't look as pretty on a shelf, but then you could do the steelbook type versions as a different version to get like a nicer case. So I think it's a good idea.
It is definitely a good idea, and I think that if they haven't considered it, they're being stupid because discs are just old technology, aren't they? Old technology. It's about time discs died. Yeah. Did I say that?
Okay. Question 2. Compared when I started gaming 20 odd years ago, only a rare few games get me excited to play. As the Mass Effect series, Last of Us, etc. Do you think it's because we've been too saturated with quantity and our interest is slowly being diluted over time? So that you're not as excited about modern releases as you did, and is that because there's so many games out? I definitely think that's part of it. There's so much out all the time. Like every month so far this year, we've had at least 2 AAA games.
Yeah.
And that's ignoring the entire indie scene.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is oversaturation, but I think maybe the good games do come just as often. You just see so many games that you don't feel. It doesn't feel like you're getting as many good or the exciting games as often. I don't know. I mean, it's all personal in terms of what you're excited for personally, isn't it? But I feel like there's never been as many good games. I think you think about this year and last year. There's been so many good games.
Yeah.
So many highly reviewed games, but it's a case of personal preference. Though, if you don't like the open world type of games, then that limits your amount of games you can get excited for. Really, but yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, it feels like the Mass Effect. There's no games like Mass Effect now. There's no series like Mass Effect. They just don't do them like that now. I don't know. It's like the whole AAA industry has changed into these service-based. Let's rape as much money off the players as possible. Rather than just making good games for the sake of good games. Outside of PlayStation, I think that PlayStation are the ones that are only ones that are doing it right. And luckily tomorrow, as of recording of this, it'll be today if you're watching this podcast, we've just talked about it, Days Gone. That is another PlayStation exclusive. These are the ones that I'm getting excited for now. It was Spider-Man, it was God of War, it was Days Gone. Horizon did really well. I mean, how many other... Last of Us Part 2.
That's so.
Death Stranding,
Ghost of Tsushima. We don't know anything about when they're coming out.
Yeah.
Although there is a leak, well, sort of maybe leak that Last of Us 2 is coming out in September. I don't have any actual information in front of me, but
those are the games by default you have to get a little bit excited for as somebody who just hates microtransactions and additional monetization in games. You cannot ignore these Sony PlayStation exclusives because they're the only ones doing AAA right at the moment, I feel, outside of the likes of like Cyberpunk or whatever. But there we go. Next up, DK Collie. Okay, I'm going to read this. You're going to answer it because I haven't got an answer for this. Because
I haven't got any answers. I need to research it. All right, you read it. I'll start.
Okay, so this week's Shag, Marry, Kill will be Mortal Kombat themed to coincide with the release of Mortal Kombat 11. I know, I should be in PR. I know, right? The choices are Sonya Blade, Mylena, and Jade. Have you got any...
Right,
have to pay any microtransactions for any of these characters? I mean, are there any raunchier outfits that they can be in based on how much money that you've paid for the game?
That's they have jiggle physics?
I would shag Mylena, as she would be wild, and she's likely to get a bit bitey, just a bit bitey, mind.
She's the one with the like teeth coming out of her face.
Oh God, you would shag what?
A bit bitey.
I mean, I'm not here to judge.
There was a bit of a debate about a bit bitey on the Ask channel about like, oh, so that's what you're into. Huh?
How bitey though? That's the question. It's like a bit bitey. I mean, I wouldn't want them teeth anywhere near me. Sorry. Marry Sonya as I love a girl in uniform. So Sonya, Mortal Kombat. Have you got her?
Yeah, she's look a bit like a soldier.
She got a scar as well.
I don't know if that's scar or just like blood. I think it's a bit of blood.
Oh yeah, she looks alright. Oh, she looks a bit.
I don't know what that is.
Her eyebrows are a bit. I mean, yeah, okay, I can see it. I can see that one. And I would kill Jade as she's built like a bloody bodybuilder. A bloody bodybuilder. Jade, Mortal Kombat. No, man, there's nothing wrong with a bit of muscle.
She's lean.
There's nothing wrong with a bit of muscle. Let's check this out. Jade MK11. Images.
Yeah, this is...
yeah, man, I'm digging it. I wouldn't let those gnashers anywhere near me, dude. So Mylena is out of the freaking window.
Right, we'll move. So I reckon... Wait, what's the order? Let's just get the order right. Shag, marry, kill. So marry is in the middle. Shag, I think Jade. Lean, mean. You can have a solid time. Sonya, she's...
literally solid. Well, she's got bigger muscles than you, though.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
That's fine.
If I tried to get big muscles, I would be ashamed. But I'm like, I haven't tried, so
I mean, the bonus is if you're ever out on a date or whatever, and some bruiser comes and insults you, she can fucking kick his ass for you.
And because she's fit, she's probably going to get like catcalled all the time. And anyone who does that, she's just going to beat the shit out of.
There you go.
So
bonus there.
Shag Jade. I think I'll marry Sonya. She's she's got the uniform and everything, so I think she's like reliable and strong-willed and independent and all that. She's being voiced in the new one, I think, by Ronda Rousey, the
actual MMA fighter.
Fighter. And she's a badass. Like, I don't follow MMA or anything, but I just think she's cool. So marry
you got to kill
Sonya
that horrible
and kill Mylena. Like, there's now going on there for me, really. The teeth, it's just...
Let's see if she has any redeeming features. I mean, she's That's a pretty good outfit right there I'm looking at, but that's self-Reddit, so you never know if that's true. Yeah, those teeth, man. She's got to cover up. Bag over her head.
I like a girl with a nice smile, and I'm sorry, Melina, you don't have that.
That ain't a nice smile. I think we're in.
Sorry, girl.
I think we're in agreement there. Anyway, anyone else has any better answers, leave them down in the comments below. And thank you, DK Collar, again, for another smashing question. Next up, you want to read it?
Yeah, it's from Lochgar. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the break. Did you enjoy the break?
Yes, I did.
What I had an all right time. I was still working, so. What death scene for a character or characters in a video game stood out to you when you watched it, and why? Now, I think we need to quickly preface this with a massive spoiler warning for any of the games we're about to talk about.
Yeah.
Because people are.
Well, we don't know what games we're going to talk
about. Exactly. What my instinctive one, spoiler alert, Gears of War 3.
Yeah.
When Dom dies, like just over halfway through, because his whole arc through the 3, because he's not the main character, he's your like best friend, and he's the co-op character. He's trying to find his wife in all of the horrible war and apocalypse, whatever you want to call it. So you don't really get to know him in the first one that well. You know that he's looking for her, but that's kind of it. It's a bit less character driven. Second one, that's his like pure vision. He doesn't care about winning the war really. He just wants to find her and kill anything that gets in his way. And then you do find her, and she's like Holocaust victims, you know, in concentration camps, super malnourished. Yeah. Not quite actually dead, like the brain's still working, but her mind's gone. She's just not there. And then he euthanizes her, so her death in itself is really, really quite moving. And then in the third one, he's completely depressed. He's just existing to go. Like doesn't have any will to live. And then eventually he sacrifices himself by blowing up this big like petrol station or something. And that really resonated with me, because I love the trilogy, and the way Marcus, the main character who you play as, he's like freaking out. He's like trying to claw through people to like stop him doing it, and then it still happens. It's really sad. Yeah. And there's it like take your word for that. He then kills the big bad with like his knife, and it's like, this is from Dom, and it's like, oh fucking yeah. I think there's a couple that stick out to me, and a couple of my favorite games ever. The Last of Us, when Joel. Spoiler alert for The Last of Us, and spoiler alert for The Walking Dead season 1. Sarah from The Last of Us. Oh my god, that is the worst. Yeah, it's the worst, but it's the best. That's what makes it the best. Yeah, it's because it's the worst, right? It's so unpleasant, it's gut-wrenchingly bad. Yeah, I think I've probably said this before, but Troy Baker, who plays Joel, said that shooting that scene over and over and over again was the second worst day of his life. Yeah. With the first worst day of his life being the place where he had to draw that memory from, like the actual real life experience that he drew from. So there you go. Because that it's what makes the game to me. I mean, the first half an hour, if you can do that to the main character that you've been running around as for that first half an hour. A young girl like that who's only trying to please her dad because it's her birthday, something like that. Like he gets home late from work and she's still awake. Yeah, and she gets him a watch or something. Yeah, the other way around. And he keeps that for the whole game. Yeah, and it's like she cares for him so much, and there's obviously a connection there, although he's got his troubles and that, and then she's taken away from him in such a brutal fashion, and avoidable as well, because it's just some drone following orders, and he doesn't even want to. He's like, she's just a kid, but he does it. Yeah. That's gut wrenching, and there's such great writing and such great acting. I think that is the number one. But the other one is, what's his name? You said the Walking Dead. The Telltale's Walking Dead. Yeah, it's Lee from The Walking Dead. That's awesome. That's just another awesome gut-wrenching moment. And I think that those are the two deaths that stick out to me. His is one that you like feel coming, because stuff happens with him and he's not doing very well. Yeah. And he's starting to kind of fall off. The group's breaking a bit as well. Yeah. And then I think that's what cements that game as one of the best, because it has the balls to do that to the character that you've been the whole game. Sure. And I like that, and that's one of the reasons why Game of Thrones is my favorite TV show. It's not because of the tits, and it's not because of the dragons, and not because of the battle scenes, right? It's because
the characters who you've grown to love are just so easily dispensed, and it's like if anyone has the balls to do that, then they're putting the story ahead of everything else.
Yeah.
The story is key there, and it's about taking you on that emotional journey, and it's about you as a viewer rather than just trying to keep people happy or people in jobs and actors getting paid on a daily basis or whatever. I mean, Sean Bean's used to dying anyway, so I mean,
Scene Bean.
Anyway, let's move on before we get into spoilery on the Game of Thrones scene. But it's a fucking good show, isn't it?
Oh,
fuck me. Next up, is it your turn to read? No, it's my turn to read.
Yeah, it's you, I think.
Not That Rob Lowe. What is your opinion on the Days Gone review embargo being essentially 12 to 18 hours before release, depending on where you live? Is it Sony showing a lack of confidence in their product, or does it not really matter? A lack of confidence. I don't know whether it shows a lack of confidence. I think the embargo is one thing, and then when the reviewers get it is another thing. The reviewers might have had it for a while, right? I mean, they didn't send us one because they're arseholes.
Well, like, I've got the embargo, and they said we're sending it to me, but still waiting.
I think Bethesda got a bit of shit because around the release of Dishonored 2, they didn't release any review copies until the day of release, right? So the reviewers got it the same day as the players, because that's fair. No, it isn't. Stop pulling the wool over. However, we don't know how long people have had Days Gone in their hands, reviewer-wise. So long as they can get an in-depth review out 12 to 18 hours before release, I don't see that as a problem myself.
Yeah, it's still before. Like 24 hours would be nice. That's generally what it is. Sometimes you even get a few days before for people to really.
It was a couple of days with God of War, wasn't it?
Yeah, like I think it also depends when it releases, because if a game releases like midweek, they might do it a bit earlier. Well, I don't know. It's just a bit of an assumption. I don't really think it's a lack of confidence. I think it's them being a bit more tight on like spoilers and stuff, because
that's true.
They're really pushing the story of it, and they've spoken a lot about the story of Deacon St. John. I think the creative director, what's his name, John Garvin. He seems super like it's his baby. Like he's very committed to it. Yeah, and I think they're just trying to keep things as close to them as possible before the general public.
It makes sense. It's a very narrative heavy kind of game, and. How many hours of motion capture or cutscenes with like 3 hours?
I had like 6 hours or something. They might have cut it, but I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, personally, I don't think that it shows a lack of confidence. I think it maybe it does show a lack of confidence.
Yeah, it certainly could. Like, it's not impossible.
Maybe it's not a problem for me. That's for sure. Does it show a lack of confidence? Maybe, because early impressions weren't great. I mean. When Game Informer had their preview access and they did a whole month of specials on it. It was
like this time last year.
A lot of people were like, it doesn't look that great. The world looks a bit shit. The gameplay looks a bit generic. So maybe that is a little bit of the reason why it got delayed for a couple of months and they ironing out and trying to make it as good as possible. And two, why they've... I don't know. I don't think Sony are the kind of... I mean... If they weren't confident, what difference is going to make 2 days or 1 day before, or even on the day? I mean, if they're not confident, then I guess you could argue that the less people get reviews out by review day, the more people are going to buy it because the reviews can't sour them on it.
I feel like this is the kind of game where a lot of people are going to just buy it anyway, because it's a PS4 exclusive,
PS4 open world,
big AAA thing,
AAA game. Yeah.
So I don't know.
What do you guys think? We're kind of conflicted on that one. I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters because a lot of people who are going to decide based on the reviews will just do that because they've got a day before. I mean, you can buy it on the day, just the same. And anyway, last question.
Well, there we go. It's from Rudy Manchego. With burnout being pushed on developers such as Epic for Fortnite, what can we, as savvy and handsomely good-looking gamers, do to support devs while still playing the games we do?
Well, speak for yourself, Rudy.
I love me some good games, but I don't want people getting nobbled to hit an arbitrary financial date so I can play the latest game. Also, Henry, stand up for Star Wars against Emperor Gaz. Fucking little Star Trek fan. Team Star Wars all the way.
I just watched the series finale of Star Trek Discovery and kind of minus spoiler alert, I fucking didn't like that.
I started watching Star Trek Discovery and I thought it was wank because I wanted to like Star Trek. So I didn't like the original trilogy. Didn't really like Next Generation. And I tried, it's a new one. I'll try it.
That's where you went wrong. So you didn't like Jean-Luc Picard and the crew.
Oh, then Next Generation was better.
It was the best, man. Jean-Luc Picard.
I didn't watch all of it, obviously, because I didn't really like it. But then I did like the new J.J. Abrams movies. Well, at least the first two. And a lot of Trekkies or like true Star Trek fans don't like those ones. But
well, I mean, it's a fun ride. Anyway, we got off topic here a little bit, but in terms of how do you support devs while still playing games we do? I mean, it's a tricky one. It's a very tricky one because all we can go on is reports in like exposés from Jason Schreier and shit like that about working conditions. And it's the same as any industry. Workers will be exploited in any industry that you won't even know. I mean, the shirts you're wearing on your back right now might be from exploited labor. You never know, right? So it's a more unethical question in terms of you as a human being rather than, I mean, because it permeates your whole life rather than just gaming. So I mean, where do you draw the line? If you draw the line in gaming, does that mean you'll shop ethically in terms of food and clothes as well? I mean, if you're that kind of person, then maybe that's what you want to do. For me, I feel like for the people making games, the bottom line is they'll always have a choice not to work, and I know it's very grey again. I can't say it's okay because they've got the choice. I'm not saying that entirely. What I'm saying is that there are ways to get out of a bad situation if you're in one. It might not be feasible for a lot of people, whatever. I mean, but the bottom line is, I mean, you've got choice, even though it doesn't seem like you've got choice. You might not feel like you've got choice. Maybe I'm being a bit ignorant. But I feel like it's not on me to solve other people's problems on that level. I mean, there's things that we can do, right? We can raise awareness, and as influencers, we can do that. We can make the articles, make the videos based on articles of Jason Schreier, talk about these things, make sure people understand some of the conditions that people are working, put pressure on these big corporations in order for them to change the culture within their businesses. But going to the extent of not buying a game because one person complained that they were forced to do overtime or whatever, it's where you draw the line is the problem. It's like if that's not enough complaints for you to draw the line, how many people have to complain about bad working conditions before you draw the line? And if you're an absolutist and you say, right, if anyone gets treated badly, then I'm not buying a game, you'd end up not buying any game ever because people are going to feel like they're being mistreated no matter what business they work for.
I just think you should support what you like in games and in terms of like principles. If you hear a company is treating everyone really badly, if that's a problem for you, just don't buy the game. I mean, when it comes to supporting the developers, it's not really your responsibility. And if you don't like the game, you're not losing anything, are you? If you do like the game, but you don't like the way they're being treated, there's not really a lot you can do, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it's so difficult. It's one of those really tricky, morally grey kind of places to be.
Like I don't know how merchandising works in the games industry. I know in like music generally, that's how a lot of artists make their money because there's nothing in CD sales or like Spotify plays or anything. They get a bit from touring, but they get loads more from merch sales. So I don't know if publishers or developers get anything from that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But if like you like the game, but you don't like the way they've been treated, buy a shirt. Yeah. Maybe they'll get a kickback from it. I don't know. I think
ultimately, it's a question of politics, right? I mean, are labour laws fair enough? I mean, that's not for us to decide that. But in terms of people working in conditions that aren't fair enough, but they're within the legal law, right? They're legally allowed to be mistreated in that way. I mean, it's a very big can of worms to open. So, I mean, have we got to trust that the law is protective enough of employees even?
Like, just because it's legal, does that mean it's right?
Yeah, I mean, do we have to pick that apart on a case-by-case basis for every single game that we play? That sounds like a lot of effort to me.
And I think you've really got to like look deeper at it, because it's not the same across the board either. Like Anthem's development, pretty much the general consensus is that it was crap and it was horrible and no one liked it. But then when the big sensational articles came out about Red Dead, the some employees were saying, yeah, it's been pretty intense. Some were like, I've no idea where this is coming from. I've had a great time.
Yeah.
And then the higher ups, I can't remember what his name is, Dave Strauss or something. But I can't remember.
I don't remember.
He was like, it wasn't everyone. It was just the core writing team of like 3 to 5 people, something like that.
Yeah.
So it really is case by case, and it is if it is that much of an issue to you.
Yeah, I mean
it comes down to buy or not to buy.
Yeah, I fully support anyone who wants to take a stand against companies like this. I mean, I'm not against that at all. But on a personal note, it's just too much of a minefield to try and dig through. And ultimately, again, I think that I put faith in this system the way it is to even itself out. People like Jason Schreier, for all the criticism that he gets, he's doing God's work in terms of those people who aren't being represented and don't feel like they're getting their voices out there because they're being mistreated or whatever. It's reporters who are digging the dirt and exposing these companies in the way that they are, that get change done. And I feel like if that happens, the more that that happens, the more people like Jason Schreier will come out and expose it, the more that things will change. It ends up having a equalizing effect in the long run, although it takes a while for that change to happen. But you just got to support Jason Schreier and what he does. I don't think that me not buying a game is going to do anything in terms of. I don't know. I mean, we can raise. I feel like raising signal boosting the message that gets out there from the likes of Jason Schreier is ultimately a lot more. It contributes a lot more than just not buying a game on principle like that.
I think it's.
I don't know.
It's not really relevant. It kind of popped into my head when it comes to bad companies doing perceivably good things. Like EA, loads of people swear them off completely, rightly so in a lot of cases, a lot of dodgy stuff going on, a lot of microtransactions and all that kind of stuff. But then when a game like Jedi Fallen Order comes along, and we don't know yet, but it sounds very much like what we all want it to be, like a single player, no microtransactions, no loot boxes, no multiplayer, none of that, just solid game. Loads of people swear it off just because it's EA. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I can't say for sure because it's not out and no one's played it, but that's the game you should buy. Yeah, you should support it. It just, even though it is EA and you don't want any money going to them. Yeah, you buying it tells them that you do, that the consumer populace, do want that sort of thing. What they want.
It's
support good stuff.
Positive reinforcement, right? Yeah. I mean, it's part of being able to criticize people and practices and businesses and legitimately, so long, I mean, you can go all criticism you want, so long as you're fair with your praise as well. I mean, that's the way that I've always tried to approach it, is that if you criticize people no matter what they do, your criticism gets lost in the wind. Yeah. I feel like I don't want to really point fingers here because Jim Sterling does a lot of good work, but Jim Sterling, it feels like he criticizes no matter what sometimes. That's just the way I feel about it, and I feel like that his criticism would hit harder if he took more time to appreciate what good companies do. Maybe I'm being a little bit unfair on Jim there because he does some fucking awesome work.
Yeah, he does do good shit. I do think when he does mention the good stuff, but because he tends to get quite riled up about the bad stuff, that like rises to the top.
Yeah, I get you.
But that's his style, like. So.
But in terms of we've veered a little bit off topic. But yeah, EA, if that game is good, we should. I mean, if you don't like EA for whatever reason, that's fine. But you can't say that this game is shit you can't criticize a good game just because it's EA. And I feel like you're absolutely right. You have to promote the good games. If they make a good single player narrative-driven game, which is what we want. We've been crying out for ages. A decent Star Wars game, no microtransactions, no loot boxes, any of that. If you're still not going to support that because it's EA, then have a think about why, right? Have a think. Like these are the games you should be supporting.
Like loads of people call for companies like EA to just die and just stop existing. I don't want EA to. I'd rather them be good.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather you not die and be good.
I still get the point where people are like, I haven't been burned by EA, so I can say this, right? But however, I still feel like people have got legitimate grievances. If they've been burnt time and time again by EA in the past, as in Battlefront 2, the original Battlefront, Anthem, if they've just bought into it and been burnt, like, more full on you for not reading the reviews to begin with, for one. But if you're just sick and tired of EA and their bullshit and you've had enough, that's legitimate too. Yeah. I mean, I feel like you're totally entitled to do that. But at the same time, I feel like, no, I'm not in that position, so I can just try and support what I see as good in the industry, as well as criticising what I see as bad. In that way, it's fair.
Yeah.
Right?
And one good deed or one good game doesn't excuse all the bad ones, just like one bad one doesn't diminish all the good ones.
Yeah.
Like, some of the most interesting characters in fiction, in my opinion, are good people who do bad things or bad people who do good things.
Yeah. Jamie Lannister, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the Jamie Lannister experience.
Then, is he really a bad guy? Because he was a real arse in the beginning, done some truly terrible stuff, but now he's done some nicer stuff. So is he still a bad guy, or what? Makes him really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the Game of Thrones is full of them. That's one of the reasons why it's the best show ever. Full stop. And on that note, that is it for the podcast. That will do for this podcast. For those of you who want to get in questions for the next episode of the podcast, head over to the Patreon or the Discord, sorry. To access the Discord, you can head over to patreon.com/prettygoodgaming and sign up for it. It is $1 a month. What is $1 a month when it's your favorite YouTube channel? What is that? It's almost nothing. I mean, and in terms of price per joke on the Dad's channel on the Discord, that is the best value for money in gaming today. And I would dispute anybody who thinks otherwise.
All the jokes put together will form one comedy set. How much does a comedy show cost? Like, the ticket, 20 quid, 30 quid maybe?
That's it.
Who knows?
You could sell out like shows worldwide with some of that awesome content over there. Anyway, on that bullshit note, we will see you again in the next podcast, in the next video, whenever you may see us. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave us a thumbs up. And from Henry and I, we will see you again next time. Bye for now.